And all new here at 10 o'clock tonight, the Trump administration's quest against waste, fraud, and abuse could bring about changes to who can get federal housing assistance and for how long.
Budget hearings in Washington show the Department of Housing and Urban Development could cut off federal rent assistance to some people after 2 years. Our Jordan Tracy has more on what some of them are saying, the potential impacts on low-income families. Jordan.
Well, Brian and Sarah, HUD Secretary Scott Turner told the Senate Appropriations Committee last month that the department needs to do something different in order to address the housing issue in this country. Some of those changes include adding work requirements and also term limits for those in federal assistance programs. But a local housing leader tells us that it really affects a small percentage of people in those programs to fix a problem that they just don't see.
Devastating impact on individuals and families.
Janice Kimball is the CEO of Housing Connect, an organization that handles housing assistance for Salt Lake County. She says most people in federal housing assistance programs are elderly, have a disability, or are families with children. The average income, just under $14,000 a year. Kimball says a major challenge is pay for those able-bodied working folks in the programs isn't enough to sustain them without help.
I think part of the problem is, wages just haven't kept pace with the price of housing. And so even if you're working a entry-level job, you still can't afford an average 2-bedroom unit in Salt Lake County.
The Department of Housing and Urban Development's 2026 budget proposes a term limit of 2 years of assistance for those able-bodied working families.
HUD's assistance is not supposed to be permanent. It should be a trampoline, not a hammock, not a resting place, if you will. It's supposed to be like a treadway, which is a temporary military bridge that is removed once obstacles are overcome.
Secretary Scott Turner claiming the administration's limits encourage people to work their way to being able to support themselves, cutting out waste, fraud, and abuse.
We found that HUD's rental assistance to be full of waste, fraud, and abuse, broken and really deviating from its original purpose of serving temporarily Americans that are in need.
Kimball says this targets such a small percentage of people in federal programs, just 10% in Salt Lake County, that it begs the question, what's the point? She says it's added bureaucracy for people who are doing the right things and working their way to independence, cutting them off right in the middle of getting on their feet.
You're going to take somebody in that mid-process and say, your time's up, and just kind of spiral. And I think it will increase homelessness. I think it will be really disruptive to families, particularly children. I can't fathom how difficult it's going to make for people who are trying.
Now, Housing Connect tells me in Salt Lake County, 13 years was the longest that someone spent in public housing, and 9 years was the longest that someone received a housing voucher. The average was about 2.5 years and 1.5 years, respectively, for those programs. Now, Kimball added that people are on their different timelines depending on their different situations as to when they can get that independence and for the reasons that they will get off of the program. She actually told an anecdote of a woman who was in federal assistance for housing and used that time in order to get a nursing degree, and then after 4 years was able to get out of the program. So again, different timelines, different situations for a lot of people, but we're seeing that push for change for work requirements as well as term limits across many of the different departments in the Trump administration. Reporting live in Salt Lake City, Jordan Tracy, ABC4 News.